Lindsay here. Today we have this pretty cardigan that's very easy to make. First, it starts with granny squares. After the guide, I will leave a tutorial for the little granny squares that you make. It's made of granny squares and a couple of triangles here. I will also have a tutorial for that. You can customize the size of the only with those squares that you have, and it's pretty easy to make. You connect them as you go. When I was done with the fronts and the back, I went ahead and I did half double crochets all around the cardigan, the front, the back, and around the neck area. Then I added the collar, which is actually doubled here. I started at the bottom with half double crochets in the back loop up to here, and then I went on both sides of the loops, so the front and the back of the loops, and I continued going back and forth in the back loops only so I can have it doubled. Made two halves and I connected them at the back. For the sleeves, I did use my circular knitting machine, and I will also leave a quick guide for that. And after this, I did with the live stitches from the machine, I did single crochets, and then I continued adding double crochets in the back post and in the front post so I can create that ribbing here. I also decreased 8 stitches so I can taper the sleeve down. Back is one big granny square, so you just continue the little square and you just make it big. I did 2 rows of each color till I ended up with the green, and then I added 4 more rows so I can extend it a little bit because my front was a little bit longer than the back. And this was my ending edge here of half double crochets when I went all around the cardigan. So here is the connecting of the collar in the back. So you connect it actually from the right side, so when you fold it over it does not show here. And then I connected my sleeves. I just used the needle and I just sew them together. At the end I put the buttons, so I did use those buttons here, and I'll leave a link for them. I got them from Amazon. And every 5 rows, 6 rows actually, I did a buttonhole, which is 7 double crochets, 1 chain, skip that stitch, and another 7 or 8 double crochets because I have 15 stitches here, so 7 7. And that was pretty much it. I connected the sides with chain 3 and a single crochet, the fronts and the back. It's a very easy and quick project. I used 4-weight yarn, a Red Heart and Walmart brand yarn. So I did go ahead and I steamed, and I just used my handheld steamer. So if you made it till now, please subscribe to the channel and check for other inspirations that you might want to create. If you're interested in that cardigan, check the tutorial for this cardigan as well. It's a hexagon cardigan. And let's skip to the tutorial part of it. So let's start with a slip knot. Insert your hook, tighten your stitch, and chain 3. Going back to that first chain we did, we will do 2 double crochets for a granny cluster. A granny cluster is a stitch of 3 double crochets. We are counting the first chains as a double crochet stitch. That's why we are adding just 2 right now. And this is our first granny cluster, and we chain 1. And then we do 3 more granny clusters for a total of 4. So we'll do 3 double crochets and a chain, and we'll repeat the same thing again. 3 double crochets and a chain. Ending with the chain here, we'll go into that last chain we did here, we'll grab the two strands on top of it and we'll do a slip stitch into that loop on our hook, and the tail we had from those first chains will tighten really well, and this will close the gap here. And now we can chain one just to make it more secure, that last chain, and cut the yarn and weaving that end around the back together with this end, and you'll have no ends to weave. Grab your next color, start with a slip knot, insert your hook, and go through one of those chain spaces that we did. We'll be working the corners now. Do a single crochet, go through your both loops, tighten that tail we have, grab your yarn and the tail and do your first chain with both of your strands, and then just leave the tail, grab your working yarn and do one more chain. This way we are for sure here that our tail is so secure. And then we do 2 double crochets into that chain space for a granny cluster. We chain 1 and we do 3 more double crochets into that same space, and this is how we form each corner. This is how we'll form this, and then without any chains we are moving into the next corner with a granny cluster and a chain space and a new granny cluster, and we will repeat that in each corner of our granny square. And I put a chain here in the new granny cluster. Once you reach the end, you slip stitch into the top of the chain here, do one more chain, and you cut your yarn off. Weave in the end here really quick. Then next time you come over here, your ends will be weaved in and trapped under the stitches. So let's get our new color. We start again with a new color, like we did with the green. We pick a space between the clusters. So from now on, each space between the clusters will be getting 3 double crochets, will be getting a granny cluster, and each corner will be getting a cluster, a granny cluster, a chain, and a granny cluster. And I'm starting each color the same way, securing my first stitch and the tail. So here is my granny cluster, and then I'm going into the corner with no chains or anything in between. This makes my holes really small, and I don't want to have holes in my cardigan. Granny cluster, a chain, and a granny cluster. And now when I reach to the next side, I'll be ready to connect to the next corner. So I'll do just one granny cluster in the corner, and I'll be ready to start joining the side over here. So this side will join the purple and this side will be joining the green. So I did my first granny cluster here, and now I'll go into the corner. I'll do one chain to give me a little more space. Then I'll go into that corner and I'll grab my working yarn through the space I went through and slip stitch into that space, and then yarn over, and I'll do my next granny cluster into that same space of my granny square. And now I have to join the next space here. So I'm still staying in my loop. I go through that spot, grab my working yarn, and do a slip stitch into my loop, and then yarn over, and into the space of the granny square, I do my new granny cluster. And that's how it looks. And now I am going into the next space again, grabbing my working yarn, and now I'm in the corner and I do a granny cluster right there. And this is how it will work when we have 3 sides to connect. When you're over here at the beginning, you have only one side to connect. So all 3 sides will be free. But for that level here, you will have 2 sides to connect. And then I'm at the corner again here when all these 4 pieces meet, and I will chain 1 and then go into that corner, grab my working yarn and slip stitch through there and do my granny cluster. And now I can move up to the other side. So I'll be working now, connecting this side and moving up on my work. So slip stitch here and a granny cluster here. And I'm ready for another spot right here. And a granny cluster here. And then grabbing the side, you can do chain 1. And then grabbing the next space, slip stitch, and then working the other granny cluster into the same corner. And then slip stitch into the top of the chain, do 1 more chain to secure your spot, weave in the end, and there it is. So my both sides of my work will match. I'll go ahead and I do the half squares or triangles that will form the neck opening here. Let's get to it. We'll start with a slip knot, insert your hook, and chain 3. We'll go back to the first chain and we'll do a granny cluster. So we will put 3 double crochets right here for a total of 4 double crochets. And we'll do this in that first chain we had on our hook. 1, 2, 3. And then chain 1. And we'll do another granny cluster. So in that chain space we had, that will be our corner. And in the beginning here, we had a chain. So to match that chain, we'll do 1 more double crochet. So over here, we had double crochet and a granny cluster. So we had 3 double crochets actually, and the chain will made it 4 double crochets. So on this side, we have to match the 4 double crochets, and we have a chain in the middle. And then we are done with this. So we chain 1, and then we cut our yarn. We are getting the next color. The next color will start again into that. We're gonna skip that chain that we did, and in that space between the chain and the 3 double crochets, we'll chain and we'll introduce our new color. And we'll chain 2 here, and we will do 3 double crochets for a total of 4 posts there. And then we'll move to the corner and we'll just do a regular corner there of granny cluster, a chain, and a granny cluster. And then when we get to the corner here, into that between the 2 posts here of the last one and those 3 double crochets, we'll do another 4 double crochets. So we are using the space between the last post and the 3 double crochets before that to have a granny cluster and 1 more double crochet, which will be the space for the next row. So we have 3 double crochets and 1 more 4 double crochets. So that first space there, that's what we're going to use it for. Chain 1 and cut your color. And now we're going to use the last row to connect to the sides of our cardigan. Now adding the next color, and at the same time we'll be attaching that triangle to the beginning of the next row. We started the same way as we start a new color with a slip knot, and then starting, so it will be sitting like this. So we'll start here from the top and we'll be connecting this side. So again, in the space between the first post and the next 3 posts, we'll start from there, and then we'll add 3, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets for a total of 3 double crochets or a granny cluster. Then we'll move to the next one here, next space. We'll do a granny cluster, and then the corner, and when we reach the corner we'll start attaching it to the next row. Okay, so we are doing this part over here. That's gonna be, here is the bottom, here is the top. We are at this point, and then we'll have 1 more triangle up and 2 rows of just squares, and you can extend that bottom as long as you want. So here I am at the corner, chain 1 before we start the next cluster, and I turn my work the way it's more comfortable for me, and then I'm grabbing the corner here and slip stitch into the space, and then we do a granny cluster here, and then we keep going, attaching the sides as we did before up till the corner here, adding with a cluster into that space that's between that first post and the 3 double crochets over here, and my last double crochet. Then I am attaching the 1 corner here. I'll do 1 more chain to secure it, and now I am done with this triangle. So once you're done with the fronts, then we start with the back, which is just a granny square, adding the colors you want in the order you want. I did 2 rows of each color, starting from the brightest to the darkest, and any way I want will be just fine. This will match the width of the 2 fronts. So for the sleeves, I'll be using my machine, and it usually, you start it with the first row is going back and forth around the teeth of the machine. Okay, I'm back at the beginning. So here I will zero my machine. So I'm ready with my 75 rows. So now I'll just finish my work. So here's part of the sleeve. I will continue the ribbing part on one side and I'll attach it from the other side. So these are 75 rows here. So here are the sleeves are ready. I got a larger hook, 5mm, and starting with my, I did not cut my yarn on this one, so just continuing here, I will actually do single crochets. So grab your loop as if to knit, so that the front leg, you go in front of the front leg of the stitch. Grab your working yarn and chain 1. This way, if you're not twisting the stitches, they'll look like a knit stitch. But even if you do, I don't think it will matter much. And into the next loop, do a single crochet, just loosely. So we don't want to bunch it immediately. We want to have a little bit of transition there, and do another single crochet into the next stitch. So I'm going through the front as if to knit, and the next one. And once I remove the blue, oh, it's actually on the other side. This is how it's gonna look like once the blue is removed. So I'm here at the last one. So I can check if I've dropped any stitches. They'll start running. So all good. So now I can slip stitch into the beginning of the row here. And that's how I finish my round, just like that. And it does not curl much, so if you make a longer sleeve, you can leave it here like that, but I want to add ribbing, so I'll go and I'll do the same thing on the other sleeve. So chain 2 and into the next stitch, yarn over one time and do a double crochet, and then we keep going. Into each stitch we put a double crochet. And once you decide what color you want to do next, let me show you how to do the front post and the back post, and that will be all for the sleeves. So we'll do double crochets. So we'll go through the post here. We'll go, this is the front post, and then we'll go through the back, yarn over, and grab the post from the back, draw a loop, pull through, and then we yarn over again. We go through the front post again, pull through and pull through, and then we go again through the back post, just like that. And this will create a ribbing. And I will keep working on this sleeve, adding colors, and I'll do the same thing for the other sleeve. And now I'll show you how I'll do the front. So for the front, I will be making that ribbing separately and then just later attaching it, sewing it to the side. And it will start with a slip knot and chain 15. And you can actually make this part as wide as you want or as narrow as you want this side to be over here, that band. So chain 15 and then chain 1. This is your turning chain. We do not count this one, and we'll be doing half double crochets into the back loops of the stitches. But before that, we'll need to do a foundation row of half double crochets here before we start working into the back loops. So turn, chain 1, your turning chain, and skipping that turning chain, yarn over, and we are going into the back loops, which is that top side here, and working into the back loops of each row. This will be our band that will end up going all the way around here.